Before we start this episode, I wanted to tell you that if you're looking for free dog training courses, you can take the Victoria Stilwell Academy's most popular free course, Building Your Dog's Confidence, right now by going to vsdogtrainingacademy.com. That's vsdogtrainingacademy.com. Okay, now on with the podcast. My next guest on this podcast is an absolute legend. His name is Paul Owens, and he's often referred to as the original dog whisperer. He is the original dog whisperer because he's celebrating his 50-year anniversary as a professional dog trainer. He is one of the leading proponents of force-free, non-violent animal training. And he was one of the first 27 individuals in the world accredited by the prestigious Pet Professional Guild Accreditation Board as a professional canine trainer. He has an after-school violence prevention program, Paws for Peace, that's offered children and dogs, hundreds of children and dogs, the opportunity to build confidence and self-esteem while improving the safety and quality of their lives. He's a best-selling author of The Dog Whisperer, The Puppy Whisperer, has done DVDs, Welcome Home, that has gone around the world. And for those of you who are not listening on or who are not watching or can't see my video, I am holding up a copy of Training for the Joy of Dogs, 50 Lessons Learned, which is his new book, which is available online and in stores and needs to be read. So, I mean, welcome, Paul. It is such an honor that I get to talk to you.
Well, it's been a few years, hasn't it? I'm 50. You're what? A few.
Yeah. Oh, I'm up there too. I'm well up there, but no, I haven't. I'm years old, but not. No, I haven't. I think I've been teaching now for about 25 years plus. But yes, not 50 years. And you were. I mean, when they say that you're the original dog whisperer, that's truly what you were before that name was taken. But we don't need to dwell on that. But you are the original dog whisperer, and so. Please tell people about yourself, about how you became a dog trainer and how you broke the mold all those years ago to pursue a more progressive path.
After that introduction, I feel like just leaving, you know.
Drop your mic and go.
Leave on a high note. I started training in 1974, and back then other than Bob and Marion Bailey, who knew about Bob and Marion Bailey and their work using nonviolence with animals, I used the prevalent methods of the day, which is choke collars, leash corrections, pinning a dog to the ground, and I got really good at it. And so I started doing obedience competitions, and son of a gun, I happened to win a couple. And I said, well, this is something I would like to do. And so I transitioned then to training. But for 14 years, that's all I did. I didn't use treats. And so when people say, does punishment work? Of course it does. But there's a lot of collateral damage in that. And in 19, so I don't get too long-winded, you'll find, Victoria, when you get a little bit older, you start talking a lot more. So cut me off whenever.
Oh, I do already, Paul. It's nothing to do with age.
So it was 1988, and I'd been training for all those years, 14 years doing those methods. And all of a sudden, my brother got a new dog, and he asked me to come over. The dog was barking a lot. And I had stepped away from training for a little while because I was traveling around the world for a while. And the first thing I did is I came over and did what I'd done for 14 years and jerked the dog on the leash. And for some reason, boy, that leash just flew from my hand. And the thought hit me. It's one of those epiphanies that we have. I said, this is no way to treat a family member and a friend. And so I said, I gotta change this. And it took me 3 years to learn about positive reinforcement training. And we just stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. And one of the first people, I'm getting long-winded, one of the first people I spoke to, I found out who was doing this was a wonderful trainer by the name of Terry Ryan. She was so friendly, and she spent 40 minutes on the phone talking to me about this. I said, well, if this is what this training is all about, rather than all this competition and everything, I said, I want to go this route. And so I went to her chicken training camps, and it took 3 years. This is something that trainers can really understand, is it took 3 years to get all the muscle memory out of this left arm from hundreds of thousands of leash corrections. But since that time, never jerked a dog, never put a choke collar, prong collar, pinned a dog around, and never said no since that time. So it was a wonderful journey. I just still cringe a little bit about the first 14 years, but we evolve and we go. Yeah.
I mean, you write about that in this book, and I've got various things that, if you don't mind, that I wanted to read. So, if may I read this bit about
please.
What you've just described? So, one day my brother Tom asked me to help with his new dog because of a barking problem. So I popped a choke collar around his neck like I had done thousands of times before, and as soon as he barked, I yanked the leash. I immediately threw the leash to the ground as if it was on fire. Mm-hmm. It seemed, after years of trying to incorporate the non-violent tenets of yoga into my life, because you got big into yoga, my consciousness had changed. I had an epiphany. The thought popped into my mind that maybe there were kinder, less stressful, but still effective ways to educate a family member and friend, which is how I now perceive dogs. Mm-hmm. I found out there were many. I found out there were not many, but at least a door had opened. Since then, I've never looked back. And you say science rooted in kindness and compassion was now my modus operandi. Never correct a dog. Correct a dog's behavior is your motto. Yeah, I mean, it's that must have been hard for you to make that change. As you said, it took 3 years for that motor memory of that yank and crank 'em to stop.
When you get good at something, it's very difficult to let go of it until you look back and say, what the heck am I doing? Using punishment is rewarding because it can work. And to all of a sudden say, this is what I'm really good at and I want to let it go. Well, we humans, stuck and we get stuck in changing our habits. And I try to include that in my training, and I'm sure you do too, and all positive trainers do. We try to say, listen, talk to your dog and say, we're in this together. We're going to learn this together. But, things are changing from what our parents and grandparents taught us. So yeah, it's tough to let go of something that you're really good at, which is why it still exists. Negative training still exists because it's rewarding. People say, well, look what I just did. The end justifies the means. Well, it doesn't in positive training. Yeah.
So tell me, when you started on that new journey of yours, how did the people, the friends you must have made, the other trainers, how did they respond to you? What was that transition like?
Well, that's a great question. Friends are friends, and it's unconditional. If you love somebody, that love's unconditional. But it goes back to that old adage, love me, love my dog. Well, you can love your dog, but that doesn't mean you want to be in an environment where the dog is being hurt physically or emotionally. And so you stay away from those environments. And the people that looked at me as friends for all those many years, they're still friends. And for the people that said, well, you're challenging who I am as a dog trainer, I said, I'm not challenging anything. I'm just addressing the methods. And that's why I don't talk about personalities much. I just talk about methodology.
Right. Okay. So now you made that change. Then you started to educate more and more people. When did you start with all of the books and writing and becoming more of a well-known figure in the industry?
This book is all about stories, so here's a quick story.
Please, no, we want to hear the stories.
I moved out to California in 1998, and when I moved out to California, I met a woman on the internet, and so I said, well, okay, let's move out here. Let's change your life, Paul. And I moved from Cleveland to Los Angeles, and it turned out that didn't work out so well. But one of the people that she worked with was a co-author of many books. And she said, I really like what you're doing. Would you like to write a book? I said, all right, what the heck? You never know what's hitting you until after the fact. And so that came out around, I think it was around 2000 is when the first book came out. And the publisher said, you have to call this The Dog Whisperer. And I said, whatever. Again, you just never know. And so it came out, and it became went around the world, and it got translated into many different languages. So it was right around the 2000 mark that all that came to be. And then a couple of years later, we wrote The Puppy Whisperer. And so to use a phrase that you just did, there's no looking back. So that's how it worked.
Yeah, that's amazing. So really, by 2000, you're now an established author. You're working as a positive trainer. You are the Dog Whisperer, and you write that great book. You write the Puppy Whisperer book. And now, obviously, at that time, you know, it was all DVDs. It's not like now where it's just all online and it's all social media and you can just look at TikTok and there's loads of different trainers out there with qualifications or not with qualifications. But these DVDs then, and I remember this because I had your DVD, these DVDs were huge at the time. They were huge because that's all we had. And so you were kind of one of the first to utilize that to be able to spread your message so that people could actually see what you were doing as well.
You know, it's one of those things, whether you're teaching piano or training the dog, whatever, you can hear it, but you need to see it. And I'm a visual guy, and I'll give you the classic example that all trainers work out. If you're teaching a dog to sit up and beg as a trick, and so you tell the person, now put the treat like a half inch to an inch over the dog's nose and gradually bring it up and not too far back, otherwise the dog will fall over. And I guarantee 99 out of 100 people, to them, when they hear an inch, it's 6 inches. And so when you can see it, though, then your brain can say, oh, that's what he means by 1 inch. It's like saying, I'll see you in a couple of seconds. And the person shows up for dinner an hour later.
Right.
I'll be right there, honey, you know.
Dogs do that to us all the time. I always say when a dog doesn't respond to your recall, for example, and you get angry about it, I always say, well, like, how many times have you told somebody, oh, just a minute, I'll be there in a bit. It's just the dog's way of saying, look, I've got this really great smell over here. I need to smell it before I come back to you.
Yeah, but once again, it's just spot on. To make it real for people in the home, how do you translate things? And I say, imagine you're standing over your significant other's shoulder, or a child is hearing from their parent. You know that movie we saw the other day, honey? What was the name of the actor? The actor. What was the name of the actor? Don't remember the name of the actor? What was it? The person you're talking to is wanting to go non-violently going, boop, please be quiet. I'm trying to your brain has to reboot.
Right.
And I said, and that's what you're doing when you say, sit, come. And all of a sudden it makes sense. So.
Yeah.
Please excuse me.
That's okay. No, you're right. It does make sense. And I think part of why I love this book is that you really put an emphasis on understanding your dog. And of course, because you are, I guess what we call a crossover trainer, because you did have 14 years of training dogs in a much more punitive way, you have you've seen the difference, the way dogs respond to you now to how they used to respond to you when you were using punishment. Can you expand upon that a bit more? Because I think it's really interesting.
Evolution. Everybody talks about growing and we become better and better and better at what we do. And I many years ago, I came up with, it's like two sides of a coin. So science is evolving, and look what we can do. I think we've got 2 spaceships that have left our solar system. Voyager, I think their name are. So science in regards to, we've learned so much about how energy works and what we've been able to do with electricity, with health, all of that. But the other side of the coin, it's science on one side, it's heart on the other. And that has been, to me, the major progression, the major evolution over the last 50 years, is that if we look at it in a holistic way, and you're actually saying it's science, yes, I have to do this, But how do you feel about doing it? If you don't use that, and a lot of trainers still don't use that, he said, you're actually cutting your own evolution off because you're becoming desensitized. And so if you can learn to combine the two, and it ain't easy, it's practice, you get better and better and better, you evolve as years go by. But if you close off that door of your feeling with the science. I had a retired judge one time who invited me over to her house, and she got a new puppy. She said, I've had golden retrievers all my life. They're most wonderful dog, and they're great. She said, all you have to do is love them. And I said, well, people have different definitions for the word love. What we teach is science. Teach them how to get from point A to point B doing this, 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 and this. She said, yeah, you just have to love them. A year and a half later, I think I might have written about that in the book, I got a call from the judge, and she said, can you help me out? My dog just went through the second story plate glass window trying to get at people who were walking the dog outside. And I went back and I said, well, how's the training been going and everything? She said, oh, well, I've just been loving him. So this was really a surprise. You spoke about earlier, well, how long does it take people to change a point of view? I tell people it takes 2 to 12 months to become fluent in something, learning a new language, learning to play an instrument, learning to train a dog. But that's your foundation. But you continue to do the whole thing and continue to evolve for the rest of your life. So it's science on one side, but it's hard on the other. And if you can get good at that, those are what the best trainers do.
Yeah, it really is. It's combining both of them. I mean, we want to be able to, I always talk about relationship and building relationship. That's really important. That's kind of almost your first port of call. But we also need to give dogs skills so that they can live in our world. I mean, that's extremely important because it's a weird world that they have to deal with us weird two-leggers.
Yeah, I'm going to use that. That's a good one. Weird two-leggers. I like it. It's absolutely true. And you mentioned, well, how do you get motivated to do all this stuff? Read your dog. When the light bulb goes off in a dog's mind, you can feel it, you can see it, and you're more motivated to then continue doing that stuff. Dogs will then solicit you and say, hey, let's play tug more. Listen, I'll run to my bed and lie down without you asking me because I know I can get you to open the front door. They think it's their idea, which most of the time it is. But that's what motivates us.
You know what you write about, and I think what when we're talking about building confidence in dogs, maybe with that dog that you were that the judge had contacted you about, you talk a lot about curiosity. Now we know that in people, especially when people are suffering from depression, it's not so much that they feel sad. Yes, sadness is definitely part of that. It's just that it's almost like they find it very difficult to be curious, to have the space in their mind to open up and be confident enough to be curious and to experience. And it's almost like that happens. And that when you're curious, curiosity opens up a whole new world to you, and it increases your confidence. And it's not just humans. This is the same for dogs.
I don't know where I heard it, but I use it all the time, that curiosity and fear cannot exist in the same moment of time, period. It's just, we're trying to increase the duration of the curiosity, which then replaces the fear. And that, you're absolutely true. It builds confidence. Do you have time for another quick story?
Yes. Oh, we have plenty of time. Please.
My most favorite things to do when I used to go into grade schools and talk about dog safety and working with children. And whenever you walk into a room with a big dog, I had my 110-pound Golden at the time, there's always children in the back of the room that are a little afraid, a little nervous about a dog, let alone a big dog. And those are the ones that I contact first. I walk in and say, Grady's very friendly. He doesn't bite, but he gets excited when he comes in. He loves all children. But I was wondering if you could help him feel a little bit more comfortable. So I go to the back of the room and I ask one of the children, who you can see is very nervous about a dog. And I said, will you say, Grady, find it? Now you've triggered curiosity. And so the child takes the treat, and Grady was taught to never get up no matter what happens unless I give him a signal. And so half the time when the child throws a treat, half the time when the child throws a treat, it hits the the back of the head of the kid sitting in front of him. Everybody laughs. Now you've got fun. So you've got fun and curiosity, and they throw it again. And finally, they get it up to them, and I give Grady the signal. So they go find it. The child says, find it. I give Grady the signal to find it. And you can feel it. Mother Nature, in the form of a big, friendly, and a head like a small bear, all of a sudden has connected and made a bridge to Mother Nature in the child. Mm. And that is what makes all the difference in the world. So talk, but the child was able to do it. And at the end of the class, after every child has gotten to teach Grady tricks and do everything, I end the class with saying, now, you got this big old dog with this big head and these big teeth to sit and lie down, to roll over, to shake, and you got to pet him, and you never had to yell at him. You never had to threaten him. You made it fun. Imagine what you can learn to do with your family and members and friends. That takes hold, and it all starts with what you just said. You get curious first, then you fill it with fun, but you have to be safe during the whole thing. And that's the value of a program like that.
You're teaching these kids kindness. We have this mantra, our motto is kindness is powerful.
Love it.
But you're teaching these kids kindness, and you're saying that this kindness is not just towards animals. It translates towards people, to your family members as well. This is something, we're going to take a quick break, but after the break, I do want to talk about that difference. You think of like, what makes a person, what validates use of punitive methods? What makes a person use punitive methods and feel okay with it? Because it's not so much that, that this is a bad person, because some of them might be, but like, what is that? So we'll be back after this break.
Are you a dog trainer looking to take your knowledge and skills to the highest level? Or maybe you're a dog guardian interested in figuring out whether your love of dogs can translate into more of a career than a hobby? Or are you already working in the pet industry but recognize that you need to fill some gaps when it comes to how to manage dog behavior so that you can better serve your existing clients? No matter where you are on your journey, the Victoria Stilwell Academy has courses that can help you get to where you want to go. From our free Building Your Dog's Confidence starter course to the powerful Fundamentals of Dog Training and Behavior course, all the way up to our flagship Professional Dog Trainer course, we have options for every skill level and budget. All you have to do is be passionate about giving dogs the best lives possible. All of our courses are available online anywhere around the world 24/7. No gimmicky sales tactics where you need to act within a certain window to enroll. My amazing team at the Victoria Stilwell Academy understands that we need to be ready to serve you whenever the time is right for you to make the jump. Whether that means dipping your toes into our free courses or realizing your fullest professional dog training dream by enrolling in the dog trainer course. So, join the thousands of dog geeks like you that are a part of our amazing and supportive VSA family today. We have Academy specialists available to talk with you and figure out how we can help you reach your dog training goals, or you can enroll in a starter course for free right now. The Victoria Stilwell Academy. It's the future of dog training.
I am back with the wonderful Paul Owens. We're talking about his fabulous book, Training for the Joy of Dogs, and also his 50 years of being a dog trainer. What a great celebration this is. And we've been talking about, your crossover from being a punitive trainer for 14 years to this enlightenment that you had and never going back. And now you really have been a champion for force-free methods, for kindness in training. But go back to those 14 years. I mean, what made you do the things you do? Was it because you didn't have you were taught a certain way, you didn't know another way, it was reinforcing to you, you saw results, so you kept on? Like, why do you think people still now, with all of so much information out there, so much science out there, to back up how damaging these methods can be. Why is it that people are still choosing to go down that route?
I mentioned my aunt. I had a wonderful teacher growing up, my Aunt Angela. Just what a human being is supposed to be all about. Just a heart of gold, and shared everything. And she said, she used to give me these pearls of wisdom, and I've peppered the book with these pearls of wisdom. And she said, Paul, whenever you meet somebody, be kind, be respectful, helpful, be helpful if you can. She said, and she was a crusty old woman as she got older. She said, but don't be stupid. And what she meant by that was, she said, you never, and this is the greatest quote, and I use it in the dog training world all the time. She said, you never know who or what is standing in front of you. So positive does not mean permissive. It means being safe. And so why do people then continue to use punishment in a situation when they don't take who they're talking to, they don't take into consideration what that person is all about. And so what the first thing our bodies do is we want to lash out to protect ourselves. I always say when dogs are lunging at other people, I say in their mind, it's like Mother Nature saying, you better go get them before they get you. And it works. So now you have a fear-based behavior, which is punishment, which is working, and then you justify it with the end justifies the means. And so I think it has to do, long-winded again, but I think it has to do with the three things that affect the dog's behavior. One is the genetic component, what the parents, grandparents, great-grandparents pass along. Number two is the socialization period. For children, I think it's like the first 3 to 6 years. You might know that better than I. But for dogs, what do they say? It's like the first 14 to 16 weeks. Yep. And the third one is how they are raised. So the answer to your question to me was all three of those things come into play. But the answer is when you finally grow up and say, who do I want to be as a person? Whatever, like I said, you never know who or what is standing in front of you. But you as a person can now, you have free will, you can make a decision and say, is this the person I want to be? And to buck those three things that are influencing you to use punishment, that's tough. And logic, and to answer that part of your question, logic doesn't override emotion. And punishment is rooted normally in fear. It said, I got to get my family safe, so I've got to stop this behavior. Yes, but you can stop it first by prevention and management and then teaching a substitute behavior. And so I think all three of those things come to play, and they're very influential. But you never know who or what you got. But people finally have to decide, well, why do I want to change and be the person I want to be? And then the journey starts.
So I agree with you. I agree a lot of that. There is insecurity when you are, when you use punitive methods. There's an insecurity. There's maybe a lack of control that it's positively reinforcing for you when you see that what you just did worked. And then positive reinforcement's really addictive. So then you carry on and you're going to do what works. And you might feel a certain pressure to do it. I mean, when I was filming and working with the canine police department here in Georgia, I saw that these guys, a lot of them were under a lot of pressure from their department because their dogs have to be 100%. They cannot afford to have any problems whatsoever. So that is a pressure that is put upon them. For companion dogs, people want results, and they want results, and they are promised results by trainers who come and say, yeah, I can give you results, and wow, it looks like magic. And nobody really cares about what the dog is doing at the other end of the leash as long as they're behaving. But here's the other thing. I also think that for these punitive trainers, success for them with the dog obeying feeds their own egos and tells them, I am a good dog trainer because I'm getting results. I think it's a really ego-driven.
It can be, certainly, but that isn't the initial one.
No.
The initial impulse. The initial impulse is, I got to make my family safe.
Yep.
Or I got to keep people safe. they were never taught. They were never taught a substitute behavior, a different way of thinking. I haven't met too many. I have met some punitive trainers. When I asked, who did you learn the positive, and they say, I've tried this positive training, it doesn't work. I said, who did you learn from? And they said, well, I just knew it didn't work. I haven't met too many who said, I've actually given this a really good test to see what it is. But then we go back to what you were saying is an ego thing, but, I'm working on my own problems. So I can empathize with everybody that saying, well, this is who I am and I'm successful doing it. And I need to continue doing it. And so
yep.
You bring up just a really good point. Coin analogy also. Dogs are transactional. Whoever has the most value, that's who a dog will pay attention to and listen to. And I tell people, if you have real chicken, turkey, cheese, hamburger, steak, bacon, roast beef, you are worth $10,000 to $20,000. If you have dry treats, you're worth $1,000 to $10,000, and your praise is worth 50 cents. And when I say that to people who've had dogs all their life, they cross their arms and go, it's me. I'm very important to my dog. And so I only did this once and I never did it again because the guy got really angry about it. I said, okay. And his whole family was there. And was just way back when I was young last year. And so I had a piece of chicken and I put it in front of his dog. I said, okay, call your dog. Well, the dog wasn't going to leave me. And so he started yelling and go, dog over here. And I said, so who's worth more money? He said, you who put a roof over your dog's head and you feed them and you bathe them, but I smell like chicken. And so I never did that again because you never want to put somebody on the spot and everything. But that's the truth of the matter. But the second part, the other side of the coin, has to do with context. You were working with the police department. There is no such thing as a 100% reliable dog.
No, there isn't.
I am guessing what you did because I didn't see that particular great program. Followed it for years, by the way. Just super. This is why I feel like we're old friends. We go back for so long. But if you teach a dog how to sit on carpet and you ask them to sit in the kitchen on a tile linoleum floor, the dog says, that sounds familiar, but you never taught me in this situation. All those police officers, their stress would have gone down once they hear something like, we can get your dog virtually perfect in certain situations, but it isn't going to bleed over to other situations because the context changes. You meet somebody at work and then you see them in a supermarket 2 weeks later and you go, I know that person from someplace, but you have to reintroduce yourself. And then you see them at a party and everybody's wearing big funny glasses with sombreros and you see this woman laughing in the corner. I know that person. But you have to reintroduce yourself. So every time you change the context, you have to reintroduce the behavior to the dog. When we trainers explain that to the clients, that makes perfect sense. They say, and how long does it take? Well, it takes X amount of months. And, I thought I could fix this immediately. The whole quick fixing, which also doesn't exist. So I think that you mentioned earlier, I think if we can communicate that dogs and human beings, they learn the same way. It's all about context. It's all about value. You can increase your value by being a positive person, or you can increase your value by being a negative person, which is why dogs listen to people who use punishment. It's fear, and you've done it, but they both work. One works a little bit better than the other. Well, a lot better as far as I'm concerned. Positive force retraining is very, very fast.
That's what I want to ask you because there's this whole thing out there. Positive training is not fast, but here's the discussion, and you've probably been aware of this discussion for a long time, but it's a discussion and between the more balanced trainers, the traditional trainers, and then the positive trainers. And one of the arguments that the balanced / punitive trainers use is that they are the only ones that can save dogs' lives, that positive training doesn't work on big dogs or high drive dogs or dogs that are in a shelter and that's showing aggressive response, and that putting a shock collar on a dog then is validated because punitive trainers can save dogs' lives. That is an argument I hear all the time. And doesn't matter how much you say, that is, I understand your reality, but that's actually not reality. they continue with the same old tired argument. So now you have done both sides. What do you see? What do you see? Are they right? Can you really, if you've got a dog that is in a rescue situation, in a shelter, showing aggressive response, I mean, as a positive trainer, can you really not help them? Do they have a point or not?
For people who are very vociferous and really established in you have to use negative training, I don't talk. I say, watch this. And if people can see it, and I've worked with very, very dangerous dogs. I stopped working with really aggressive dogs 6 years ago because when you get older, Victoria, your headlights go and your computer starts slowing down. I said, this dog is about to bite me. And I could see it. And for all these years that I've been doing this, working with dogs that want to bite your head off, the dog bit my arm. And I said, oops, my reflexes, those connections are getting a little rusty again. And I was smart enough to say, don't force this, Paul. You're getting old. I don't want to get old. But I love my age now. It's just great. You don't care anymore about getting old. You just laugh at it. But so I say, watch it. You bring up the interesting point, though. No matter what you do, people, and that includes myself, if I'm really locked into something, hopefully I'm still working on myself, they won't change even though they see something else. The example that I give, since you asked this, is the fact I have been asked to do many television programs over my 50 years. Let's do a show about this. We really love it. I had a woman come in from Australia. She had flown out one of the horse trainers that uses positive training. And when the book came out, The Dog Whisperer, because he was the horse whisperer and the dog whisperer. So she came out, she was visiting a friend anyway. And so she came and watched my programs because she wanted to fly me out. And this has happened 6 times. We've gotten so close. You are the only one that's been able to do this successfully that I have found. And that is, it isn't exciting enough for people to watch.
Nope.
And as close as I get, we had some,
right.
Yeah, we had 13 programs in the can. It went for the first 3. It was passed. And then the 4th guy said, yeah, this isn't really exciting. We need to see the quick fix. Watch a commercial, and it's about a new pill. And this pill will solve your this problem and that problem. And then they have to do the except for. And you have smiling faces, and you have all this wonderful music. And this pill can actually kill you. Don't worry about it. And so the caveat behind the guy is saying, and these are all the reasons why you should take the pill, but you're listening to friendly music. You're watching a confident person, male or female, and they're smiling. And oh, look, and the dog is behaving right after the dog was kicked and pinned to the ground or hung. I had a psychologist. She said, I love this show. And I said, what do you like about that show? He said, oh, because everybody's so friendly and calm. I said, turn the music off. I said, you're a psychologist, and turn the sound off, and then watch. How is it that you as a psychologist and what you do, how is it that you resonate with the kicking and the hanging and the jerking and the shocking? He said, well, that trainer doesn't do any of that stuff. Turn the sound off and watch, because otherwise you're watching a commercial where they're telling you this can kill you, so don't take the pill. So I don't know if that makes sense, but again.
Oh, no, it absolutely does, which is the reason why there was a disclaimer on every single episode, right? And that was thanks to the American Humane Association that was so disgusted by what they saw. They at least that's what Nat Geo did. But yeah, so when I came up with the idea of It's Me or the Dog, it was like, I just wanted to do a dog training show, Paul. I just wanted to do a dog training show because I wanted people to have access to good information. And, even when I started in 2000 and late 2004, 2005, my techniques were different to what they are now. So I was much more pack theory because that's how I learned. Yeah. But then like you, I evolved. But I just wanted to do dog training. However, as much as I love positive reinforcement, it is not that exciting to watch.
Yep.
As much as I like the techniques, it is not exciting to watch. And I had a great production company that knew that already and let me do my thing but we're able to cast it brilliantly, not just the people, but also the dogs, give character, really focus on the dogs, which gave them a lot of character, as well as focusing on the people.
Yeah.
And my training was a part of it, but it wasn't the central tenet of it. And that's the difference, because if you took most people and said, okay, what is more sexy, right? Or maybe that's the wrong word. This woman that's doing positive reinforcement, teaching a dog to wait by the door, or some guy who's wrestling with a massive husky that is barking and lunging and is like dominating this dog to the ground and succeeds. Yay. What is more sexy to watch for the majority of viewers? Well, we know what's more sexy to watch, right?
Yeah.
It is. As people, we love that. We love that fight. And then it gets to, wow, a great resolution. But you are right. You start watching shows, not just his shows, but other shows like that. And you watch it with the sound off. I'm not saying it's me or the dog, because we do everything possible to minimize stress for those dogs. We don't always succeed, but we do everything possible we can. But you just watch after that dog has been through such traumatic handling. You watch that dog without the sound, without the music, without everything, and you see exactly what's gone on. And so I understand. I that's why I'm almost like, oh my God, Paul, you are so right. You've just knocked the nail on the head, because I've always said it. Positive training is not sexy to watch, period. But it's amazingly effective. So it might not make great television, but it's amazingly effective for dogs and the people that love them.
My great aunt, Angela, she said, Paul, all you can do is, she used the analogy of you can drop a pebble in the water. Said, you're not out here to change anybody's point of view. You are out here to create an environment so that people change their own point of view. And that took a long time to sink in. Doctors don't heal. What doctors do is create an environment so Mother Nature can do the healing. When I did a program did a seminar about a dog's memory and how it affects behavior. And I knew a little bit about memory, but I figured, well, I better bone up on this and learn. And I was listening to one PhD, and she said, now you got to remember, up to 95% of all learning is unconscious. And I go, excuse me? And I never knew this. And I'm 60 years old at that time. And it went back and said, yes, all you do is create the environment for Mother Nature to rehearse and replay what was learned earlier, the conscious part of it, and she'll take it from there. It's in psychology, we call, and science is catching up. So generalization, you meet a person in the supermarket, then you meet a person at work, and then finally you see him enough time. Mother Nature says, I got enough information. Even while we sleep, Mother Nature is connecting neural pathways, and a dog learns to sit while they sleep, literally, because Mother Nature's doing it all. That's all we can do as trainers. You better stay humble, or Mother Nature's going to squash you and say, listen, stay in your lane, dude. You have enough problems without talking about somebody else. Talk about methodology, which is what we're doing here. But believe in Mother Nature, set it up, and then get out of her way. And behaviors are doing that. People say, that's a lot of talk, Paul. Well, it is. But I said, well, what happens when you're playing an instrument and all of a sudden one day you wake up and you go ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da on the guitar or the piano? The first thought that hits you is not how that happened. First thought hits you is that what a great musician I'm turning out to be. Somebody says hola to you, and you've been practicing Spanish. And then one day, as if by magic, somebody says hola to you, and you go, hola, me llamo Pablo. ¿Cómo está usted? And you're, wow, what a great speaker I'm being. Mother Nature's doing it all, and that's what dog training is all about. Consciously make it fun, make it motivating for your dog, keep everybody safe, make it fun, make it motivating, and then watch what Mother Nature does all by herself. Get out of her way and let her do her thing. So that's why it works.
Maybe this is the reason my husband is a great, great musician. And in fact, he took up the violin when he was 3 years old. And by 9, he's playing symphonies. I mean, this talent of just this extraordinary talent of a violinist, almost inborn. But part of the way that he learned, as well as just being naturally gifted at it, is that he would go to sleep, and the tapes, it was the Suzuki Method, the tapes of the piece that he was learning. And we're talking about 4, 5, 6 years old, right? The symphonies he's learning, the tapes that he's learning, they're being played as he goes to sleep. And so much of that learning happened in that time. So he would wake up, and he's the kind of, it just always makes me, he can't read music very well, but I mean, he can to a point, but he can hear something and play it. He's one of those, right? And he can play the trombone, the drums, the guitar, the violin, and the piano. And then he can do double bass and bass. I mean, so he can play all these instruments, right?
He's his own one-man band, yeah.
Isn't he? No, he truly is. I mean, both in work and music, yes. But I'm just saying that a lot of that learning happened, it was set up, but it happened at night. So is that the same thing?
It's exactly the same thing. And the only thing that I would flavor in there is, I used to grow tomato plants, love grow tomato plants. So you plant the tomato, you set it up so the tomato plant is safe, and all of a sudden, as if by magic, there's a little bud. I go, oh, look, what a great tomato plant grower I am. And then you go out, and finally, how much longer? 2 to 12 months, depending on the brand of tomato, you can pick the ripe fruit. And that is an analogy that I give people. Behaviors need time to grow and ripen. And some people are quicker than others. I'm horrible at computers and stuff. I have a niche for dog training. But if you start talking about little dials on your iPhone, all of a sudden I'll go, yeah, that's really interesting. You know, I'll look for the squirrels and butterflies rather. I tune it off. Everybody's good at something, but you can get better at everything. And so some people can be Mozarts, like your husband, and other people say, you know, I have a hard time putting my finger on a piano key. Take what you got, go with it, but don't ever stress out that you can't do something. Long way coming around the block to address what you just said. But the moment you just say, I can't get this, you close off the whole frontal part of your brain, which is the intuitive, intelligent, hey, we can do this thing, because your stress has closed off the information. All you do is tell your brain, find it.
Oh, I love that. All you do is tell your brain, find it, like we do with dogs.
Exactly. Ooh. And people understand that. The classic example for any of your listeners is saying you can't remember the name of the actor and everything. You're having a contest, you can't do it. You're driving home from work 2 weeks later, and if by magic, boop, Keanu Reeves pops into your head, and that was the name of the actor. They are called mind pops. Everybody has them. And I point that out that dogs have them too, all of a sudden, but it's more instinctual. They're not saying, oh, wow, I just had a mind pop. They just do it. If you can capture that mind pop that you've been trying to teach a dog not to steal food off the end table, as you can see, I'm as excited now as I was 50 years ago when I first started training. But the dog looks at the food on the table, and rather than go and get it, and you're not close enough to say leave it or sit or down or whatever, the dog, you see, without any inclination, any signal from you, lies down and looks at you. That's Mother Nature who has completed the behavior. You got to jackpot that, buddy. Dude, you figured it out. Here's all your money. Children. Teach your children to be very polite. And then your 5 or 6 year old you're having a big party at your house, and you see your 5 or 6 year old go over to one of the guests and say, would you like something else? Can I take your plate for you? Without being asked. If you go up to that child later on and say, honey, I really appreciate that. That was really great. That's a jackpot for a child.
Yeah.
Because they own
100%.
it. And now Mother Nature's connecting, or science is connecting, progressing. So all these, it's like a flood of neural pathways suddenly form because of jackpots. So once again, capture the behaviors, give them time to think, but believe in Mother Nature. If you tell your brain to go find something, it has to find it. Wish we would have learned that when we were back in grade school. If you tell your brain, I want to remember that, it has to give it to you, and it may be 30 years later. But all of a sudden, it'll pop out to your head, and that's it. Watch it for your dog, too, and you'll see your training just go nuts. It's just really fast then. That was
Paul,
long-winded.
it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Your book is Training for the Joy of Dogs, 50 Lessons Learned. Your book also, you can follow along. So your book it's an interactive book, isn't it? Because you can read, but then there is videos that you can watch online.
Exactly right. As we started this conversation, that you talk about it, but people visualize it differently. So as you're reading it, if you want to see what I'm talking about, you just click, and all of a sudden you can see me doing what you just read. Thank
you so much for joining me on this podcast. We are blessed that you are in this world. We're blessed that you have, you're a champion for dogs. You have taught so many people so many good things. You are the original dog whisperer. I have been a huge fan of yours for many, many years. So it is a real, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, an honor to have had you on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, and best of luck with the book.
Thank you, and back at you.
Wow. Well, didn't I told you, didn't I, this podcast? Yeah, when I get the true legend on here, and I don't mean that, oh, you're just old. No, you're not. But you're somebody that has really not just talked the talk, you've walked the walk as well. And so, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast today. Thank you so much for listening. Get the book, Training for the Joy of Dogs. Read it from cover to cover, watch the videos, and you won't regret it. Thanks for listening, and take care, and I will see you on another podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to Victoria Stilwell's Positively Podcast. For Victoria's online dog training courses, more information, and helpful dog training tips, visit Victoria's official website at positively.com. Get connected on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media as Victoria Stilwell, and follow her on Twitter at Victoria S. Learn to become a professional dog trainer with the Victoria Stilwell Academy at vsdogtrainingacademy.com. And be sure to tune in next time as Victoria helps you and your dog live your best life together, positively.